Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our tactical breakdown series, show in which myself, Drew, and Graham Brooks break down the latest Premier League fixture, but also it takes the form of a breakdown of sometimes players, transfer targets, other fixtures in the league, and across our domestic fixtures as well. But today, of course, we are enjoying our second episode of the new series. The first one was, of course, looking at Arsenal's 1-0 win away at Newcastle. And today we're going to be looking at Arsenal's 2-1 home win against Burnley, breaking down the key instance, the key sort of tactical successes and failures in what was a really exciting game, and ultimately one in which Arsenal came out with 3 points. Now, if you are enjoying the series, please remember to give the show a like. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new around here and you want to keep up with this content. Yesterday we did our, this must be third or fourth now, Gooner Talk podcast of the season. With Webby and John, and we had our live chat going. Now, if you want to be in those live chats, you have to turn on those notifications so you get told immediately when we go live, and you can join in, have your chat, have your voice heard, and your questions answered as well. So please do that. But let's crack on with the show today and talk about Arsenal 2, Burnley 1, in a way in which you might not see anywhere else on this medium. So let's get cracking on, and first of all, I want to talk about, as we always do, who was the man of the match of the game. Now, of course, I don't think there are many people that are going to disagree with this statement, and that's, of course, that Dani Ceballos was the man of the match. Now, if we take a look at Dani Ceballos' heat map, which you can see on the screen now, he was all over the pitch. We expected sort of him to play this number 10 role, especially when Willock was playing deeper. And whilst he didn't play as an out-and-out number 10, dropping deep quite often, it did mean that he was out on the pitch for a lot of the game. He was drifting over to that left-hand side with a little bit more intensity in other areas, but you can clearly see there that he is all over the field. He is left, he's right, he's in his own half, he's doing the defensive work. He even goes up to the byline at certain times as well, and he really displayed a fantastic performance. I'm going to go into some of his key moments in the game, and then Drew's going to talk about what he thought of the Spaniard's performance. Now, I wanted to highlight his passing in the game. You can see there 66 passes made and 60 completed with a 91% pass accuracy. Now, we were lacking Granit Xhaka in the side, and if you were listening to the Gooner Talk podcast yesterday, we briefly touched on this. And you can actually see from his passing, he's spreading the ball very, very well from left to right. Short, intricate passes are a small part of his game, but you can see the amount of wide and passive passes across the pitch, and he needed to do that because we were lacking Granit Xhaka in that game. I feel that if we have Granit Xhaka in the team, we might see a little bit more fluidity, we might see a little bit more technical skill from Ceballos, and even more so that we saw in the game against Burnley. I think you'll see a Ceballos that is more free and more loose, and is able to sort of express himself even more than he was against Burnley, because the onus was very much more on him to be the guy to spread the play and increase the speed of the passing. If we look at some of his key moments, then there's obviously the two passes which led to our 2 goals in the game. The first one was a corner, and it's clearly something that Arsenal need, is someone who can clear that first man or actually hit the first man if it's our own player, and he did that a couple of times before Lacazette latched onto the end of this one and got on the end to score the goal. The next one obviously came from a really, what was basically a poor pass, which was deflected off a Burnley player, but he was straight in there, challenging on Goodmanson, won the ball back, it fell to Alba, who then cut inside and smashed it to Nick Pope's bottom right-hand corner. A really, really tenacious move, which got us the second goal, which ultimately led to Arsenal earning all 3 points. We also saw some of the triangles which the Spaniard is known for creating. You can see in this example here of Reiss Nelson playing the ball inside to the winger before moving forwards and receiving the ball back. Now, when we did our tactical breakdown of Dani Ceballos, it must be over a month ago now when we were linked to the Spaniard, we looked at a game in which he played in the Under-21s tournament against Poland, and you can see these triangles are being made in this game as well. It's something that he's really working on, really including into his game. Passing and moving is a key part of Dani Ceballos, and it's a reason why he succeeded so well against Burnley, and of course as one of the players of the tournament in the Under-21 European Championships. He was also really good on the ball in terms of his dribbling, taking players on, getting past players, and then laying passes off to either Monreal on the left in this example, or moving around to lay it off to other people. His close control in getting through players, and also in his own half, in a situation here where he's very much under pressure from 2 Burnley players. It's a quick one touch, right foot to left foot, through those 2 players, and then easily into space, passing it off to the centre-back to be able to make it more loose and more free and much more secure. Now I'm going to pass over to Drew, who's going to give you a little bit more insight into what Dani Ceballos did against Burnley.
So there's 2 aspects of our win against Burnley that I wanted to talk about. One of them would be about Dani Ceballos, not just the nature of his performance, which was fantastic, obviously. I think we can all agree. but more so what he brings to midfield, whether if he's operating in a 10 role or if he's operating as an 8, more of where a lot of us assumed he'd slot in replacing Aaron Ramsey. And that's press resistance. His ability on the ball was evident throughout the performance, and the numbers indicated that, not only did he have the most successful passes, but he had the most successful progressive passes, but also progressive carries. It's the progressive carries that I think are evident of the fact that he really allows us to build play in multiple ways, not just building from the back through Granit Xhaka controlling tempo, but he really does give us the opportunity to break the lines and to pull markers away from those who are further up the pitch, particularly Aubameyang or Lacazette or Nicolas Pepe or whoever it might be in the forward line on the day. Excuse me. It's incredibly important to have that in modern football, and you see the likes of City and Liverpool, even Spurs to a certain extent. Well, they have midfielders who can carry the ball and beat their man with a bit of technical quality. And then we assess the situation from there, and I think Ceballos did that brilliantly. Someone like Moussa Dembele comes to mind when he was at Spurs. He was absolutely brilliant in that deeper role where he would carry the ball, and Spurs really ticked because of him, and it allowed Christian Eriksen the ability to pull strings further forward without having to drop deeper so often to receive the ball. And so point 2 about Ceballos is the fact that people are assuming that Ceballos is going to come in and replace Mesut Ozil. I don't think so. I think when everyone's fit and firing, I would not be surprised if Ceballos is going to come into the midfield behind Mesut Ozil, and that will actually allow Mesut Ozil to do what he does best in the final third without having to constantly drop back into midfield, or even deeper than that, even all the way back into our defensive third to get the ball, just so he can try to build play. It's not really what he's about. He's never been about that. He was never that player at Real Madrid. He was never that player at Werder Bremen. He was never that player for the German national team. He would never drop that deep. And when he had someone like a Toni Kroos there to help him with that, and other players of the like, it allowed him to shine further forward, and that's what we need to get the best out of him, and that's what we saw from him when we had Santi Cazorla on his side, and Cazorla played a similar role that Ceballos did, where he would also help build play. He would beat his man if he needed to. He could pick a pass if he needed to. It was incredibly important for balance. So I think in terms of press resistance, the question is going to be from now on, do we see Ceballos in the 11 as a guaranteed option? And are we going to rotate players around him, particularly Granit Xhaka, Lucas Torreira, Matteo Guendouzi, depending on the opponent? And it's interesting because he's only a loan signing, but he's the one who really brings us the most of what we needed for the last couple of years. So it'll be interesting to keep track of that.
Now, in last week's episode of Tactical Breakdown, I took a look at the crossing that went on with Matt Ritchie, with Javi Manquillo, and Willems as well, and I thought we were really sort of passive in the way that we didn't close down the Newcastle players quick enough, and it could have really cost us if we were maybe playing against a better side, or if the likes of Joliton could have gotten a better end on some of those crosses. But we slightly improved against Burnley, even though we still allowed quite a lot of crosses into the game. We definitely started to improve. So I want to take a brief look at how we might have done that. Now, in the early part of the game, this is where I really got a little bit of concern with David Luiz. You can see here in this example, just in the 3rd minute of the game, he's caught out of position, and that means that Goodmanson is able to run down the right flank and fling across into the box, with no chance of David Luiz being in there to help out his defenders, because he's pushed forward, he's out of position, he's so far away from the game, it now leaves us slightly vulnerable. And against Liverpool, this is the type of thing that will concern me moving forwards, and I think maybe that's a decision that Unai Emery has to make. Does he go with someone with experience like David Luiz, or does he therefore pick someone like Chambers, who had a really disciplined performance against Newcastle and therefore might show that same discipline in the game at Anfield? If we then move on, those early crosses we talked about in the Newcastle game were present for Burnley. Matt Lowton there swinging the ball from an early cross. Reece Nelson is not closing him down quick enough, and this was something that we saw on that side. The wingers Mkhitaryan and Nelson in the game against Newcastle really lacked sort of the energy closing players down, and you can see this again with Nelson. This concerns me, especially when coming up against the likes of Alexander-Arnold and Andrew Robertson. I just feel that they'll be getting some really, really tenacious and accurate and dangerous crosses into the Arsenal box that could really cost us if we don't stop the supply into the Arsenal box. Finally though, this is where Dani Ceballos again shows off some of his tenacity, closing down players, stopping the crosses coming in as much as possible, and he was one of the only few players in our midfield that actually decided to do that in the game, and that's something that we'll definitely need him doing again when we have to go up to the northwest. If we then look at the Barnes goal, I think it's important we look at the reasons of why we conceded. Again, David Luiz at fault defensively here, and another thing that will concern us going into Saturday's game this week. I think if we take a look at how the goal actually starts, just look at the amount of space that McNeil is able to receive the ball in. There's no one there, and that's what leads to the second phase of play where Dani Ceballos realises the danger and he needs to sprint in to try and close McNeil down. Because he's actually doing it at such pace, McNeil is very, very easily able to sort of shift his weight, meaning that Dani Ceballos' weight is fully on his right foot. He's moving down the right-hand flank onto the right-hand side, and McNeil's easily able to shift the ball inside and take the ball around the Spaniard. That then moves to the next phase of play where you've seen McNeil get past Dani Ceballos. It's easily done. He's now got the opportunity to either take a shot of his right or possibly put it onto his left and maybe get a pass in to see Barnes moving there. Now in this scenario, you can actually, David Luiz is looking at Barnes. He knows where Barnes is. Guendouzi is behind him, covering the other Burnley player behind him. Everything in this scenario at the moment is okay. It's when it reaches the next phase of play, David Luiz has switched off. He's now looking at the ball. He's moving away, and Barnes pulls off the back of the Brazilian and makes himself available. Socrates does everything right in this moment. He closes down McNeil. He tries to get a block in. Unfortunately, that means that the ball is then deflected into Barnes' path, and by that time, David Luiz is nowhere near the Austrian striker. It's weird calling Ashley Barnes Austrian, but that is what he is. He's got those links to his past. But the Austrian striker there getting the ball, and he's able to slot away with a little pressure from Guendouzi at the end. Couldn't quite do it, but it shouldn't have been on Guendouzi in that position. Also, the lack of Nacho Monreal in this picture really concerns me. I know it came from a counter-attack, but that's certainly something that we need to be wary of against Liverpool moving forwards. Now I'm going to pass back over to Drew, who's going to have a little chat about Alex Lacazette's positioning in a forward line that features Nicolas Pepe and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
And the second point I want to talk about was the positioning of Lacazette in the first half and the second half. First half, he was where you would expect, kind of all over the place, really central, really focal to what we were trying to do. He would drop deep, obviously, like he likes to do, and really try to help us build play, hold the ball up, set others up. But in the second half, it was interesting to find that he drifted out wide right a considerable amount, maybe more so than he usually does. Obviously, with Aubameyang coming off the left once Nicolas Pepe came off the bench, like I said, drifting will obviously allow those channels for Aubameyang to operate on his, tucking in on his right foot and really kind of creating chances. And certainly with Ceballos or Joe Willock really coming further forward as play progressed, that was also incredibly important. But like I said, drifting right as well, with Pepe coming in on his left from the right, we also have to vacate more space centrally for Pepe to come in and maybe get more involved. And we saw how much Pepe drifted centrally that match as well. And that's really part and parcel of his game. He's a wide player, but he is not a winger at any extent. He is very much an inside forward. He likes to come in on his opposite foot, likes to get involved, likes to get some goal-scoring opportunities. He even had that nice little diagonal little ball in for Aubameyang and it created a halfway decent chance. So I think you can really discuss that and really think about the fact that we're going to have, if they're all in the 11, a really mobile, interchangeable, really threatening front three with Oba on the left, Laka through the middle, and Pepe on the right. And it's really going to cause havoc for defensive systems and formations to kind of keep track of all of them when they're off the ball. And when you add someone like Ceballos into the mix, Mesut Ozil as well, that's how you can break down those deep blocks. And that's something that we've really been lacking across all positions in the 11 for the last couple of years. So it's exciting to think about. The possibilities a lot will come down to Emery in terms of how he wants us to play. If it's always going to be build through possession and really try to pick a team apart, or if it's going to be more direct. And I feel like it should be more direct considering the kind of players we do have in the team. But either way, we have options, and as I said before, really giving yourself balance and options and multiple threats and from multiple facets. That's how you win football matches. That's how you go on and challenge, and that's what you see in the likes of City and Liverpool, and why they're so threatening, because they can hit you in multiple ways through multiple players in multiple types of deployments and tactical systems. So it'll be interesting to see how Emery does with that moving forward. It's crucial to think about considering we do have Liverpool next week. and a tough place to go. So it's not perfect yet, but some promising signs further forward at the very least, and that's something to consider.
Question that's been on the lips of all Arsenal fans since his arrival: how will those three work in a front three that includes Pepe, Laka and Oba, of course? And it's going to be something that I can't wait to see us do from the start of the game. We saw it a bit, and Drew went into how Lacazette drifts slightly wide when Pepe likes to cut inside. You know, with an inverted winger, he's going to be cutting inside as much as possible, trying to get those shots off. We saw it against Burnley. Couldn't really influence the game as much as he wanted. I compared his performance to that of Dani Ceballos against Newcastle. Slightly forced, wanting to make an impression, but ultimately he will settle in and it will work. I really hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of Tactical Breakdown. If you have, please give it a like, please subscribe if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show, and please leave your comments in the description. We love reading through all those comments that you leave week in, week out. They mean a lot to us, and they tell us how you think that we're doing. If you think there's anything we can do to improve, please do not hesitate to let us know. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll be here this week, don't worry, with a few more shows. In fact, there's going to be two eyes of the oppositions this week with two different fans of Liverpool and two different experts and sort of personalities from Liverpool that are going to be here giving their thoughts on a preview of the game. And of course, we'll have our press conference preview and my reaction to that with the preview news as well. So please do make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you can get told exactly when they drop. And I'll see you again very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.